I'd been sitting at Dolores Hale's dining table for 40 minutes, watching my daughter shrink with every passing comment, and I finally understood what people meant when they said patience could run out like water from a cracked cup. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The room was everything Dolores wanted the world to see. Crystal chandelier, expensive frames showing Griffin and his mother at charity galas. Elin appeared in maybe 3 of those pictures, always at the edge, always smaller somehow. "Harold, you must be so proud," Dolores said, cutting into her salmon. "Watching Elin marry up the way she did. Not every girl from a blue-collar family gets this kind of opportunity." I'd heard variations of that line for 5 years. I glanced at Marianne, who gave me that look, the one that said, "Not tonight, not again, think of Elin." Griffin laughed. "Come on, Mom. Harold knows we're just playing around. Right, Harold?" "Sure," I said. "Just playing around." Elin reached for her water glass, and I caught the tremor in her hand. My daughter taught second graders and volunteered at the animal shelter. She'd never had a tremor until she married Griffin Hale. Griffin refilled his wine glass. 4th time. I'd been counting. 30 years on construction sites teach you to count drinks, watch for unsteady hands. "The program sounds lovely," Dolores said, "though I do wonder if teaching is really where Elin's talents lie. Griffin could always use help with the restaurant's social media." "I like teaching," Elin said, and there it was, that tiny defiance that used to fill our house when she was 16. Dolores smiled, the smile that made my back teeth ache. "Of course you do, sweetheart." "I've got a great story," Griffin interrupted. "So this health inspector comes in last week, right? Total hard ass. I told him if he had a problem, he could take it up with the city council." I already knew this story. I'd heard a version from Aaron Brooks, the police lieutenant who sometimes met me for coffee. Things like how Griffin had received 6 warnings about occupancy limits. "Must be nice," I said, having the mayor on speed dial. Griffin's eyes narrowed. "It's about networking, Harold. Something you'd understand if you'd ever tried to run your own business instead of just being a foreman." "Griffin," Elin said softly. Too softly. "I'm just saying, there's a difference between taking orders and giving them." "None taken," I said, meaning every syllable as an offense received and filed away. The barbs continued. Dolores talked about her event business, making pointed comments about people who are content to stay small while looking directly at me and Marianne. Then Griffin started in on Elin. "Tell them about that thing with the parent-teacher conferences." "It's nothing," Elin said quickly. "She completely mishandled a situation with a parent," Griffin said, talking over her. "Made herself look paranoid." "That's not exactly what happened," Elin said quietly. "That's exactly what happened. Embarrassing." I watched my daughter's face do that careful, blank expression. Swallowing words, swallowing hurt, swallowing herself. "Elin was being responsible," Marianne said. "Elin was being oversensitive," Griffin said. "It's a pattern. Right, babe?" He reached under the table. I saw his hand move, saw Elin's face change, not dramatically, just a tiny flinch, a tightening around her eyes, and then I saw Dolores smile. Not a big smile, just a small upturn at the corners of her mouth. Satisfaction. Something in my chest went cold and absolutely clear. 5 years of conflicts with these people. 5 years of swallowing insults and backing down. 5 years of watching Elin get smaller, and now I was watching Griffin hurt her and watching his mother smile about it. "Excuse me," I said. I stood up, pushed my chair back, pulled out my phone, and walked out onto the back deck. My hands were steady. I'd expected rage, but instead I felt like I was back on a job site, watching a wall I'd warned about finally show the first crack. I pulled up Aaron Brooks in my contacts. Pressed call. He answered on the second ring. "Harold, everything okay?" "No," I said. "You know that situation we've talked about? With Hale's restaurant?" A pause. "The building code issues, and the occupancy concerns." "Yeah, those. I'm done waiting for Griffin to handle them himself." "Harold, I've been in conflicts with that man and his mother more times than I can count," I said. "Tonight I watched him hurt my daughter at his dining table, and I watched Dolores smile about it. I'm done turning the other cheek." Another pause, longer this time. "The restaurant has multiple open complaints," Aaron said finally. "If someone were to provide specific documentation, I've got documentation, photos, dates, contractor receipts showing work that was never properly permitted. Then maybe it's time those materials found their way to the right people." "Harold," Aaron said, his voice changing. If you're serious about this, you need to understand what you're starting. I know exactly what it is, I interrupted. I've known for 5 years. I just finally decided to stop being afraid of it. When I walked back inside, they were eating dessert. I sat down, picked up my fork. Marianne looked at me with eyes that knew. Everything all right? Dolores asked with false sweetness. Fine, I said. Just had to take care of something. Elin was staring at her plate. Under the table, Griffin's hand was back on her leg. Possessive. Controlling. I took a bite of chocolate cake and thought about load-bearing walls and how you had to be very careful about which ones you removed and in what order if you wanted the whole structure to come down. I couldn't sleep that night. This was lying in the dark, thinking about all the times I should have acted and didn't. Year 1. A Griffin had asked me to consult on his restaurant renovation. I'd spent 2 weekends marking issues, explaining why he couldn't knock out walls without proper support. He'd listened, nodded, thanked me, then hired the cheap contractor anyway. 3 months later, when the inspector red-tagged the whole job, Griffin called in a panic. I'd fixed it, cost me favors with people I'd known for 20 years. He'd paid me back $12,000 of the $15,000 I'd loaned him. The other 3 were disputed charges. Year 2. The first real clash with Dolores. Some family barbecue where she'd made comments about how Elin should dress better because presentation matters in their world. I'd said something, and Elin had begged me not to escalate, so I'd apologized. Kept the peace. Year 3. Griffin expanded the restaurant. I'd stopped by during construction and seen overloaded floors, blocked fire exits, electrical work done by someone who'd learned their trade from internet videos. I'd confronted Griffin. You're going to get someone hurt. You're being dramatic, Harold. Maybe your information is outdated. Like construction physics had changed. I'd gone to Elin with photos, she'd cried. Dad, why do you always assume the worst about Griffin? I'd backed off. Again. Year 4. The physical stuff started. Elin wore long sleeves in summer. Once I'd seen her wrist, purple-yellow fade of an old bruise. What happened? I'm so clumsy, Dad. Bumped into the car door. Marianne had confirmed what I suspected. He's hurting her. She won't talk about it. We should... What? She'll deny it. We'll lose her completely. So we'd done nothing. Year 5. Last night. The smile on Dolores' face. I got out of bed. Marianne woke. Can't stop thinking about it. No. If we do this, we do it all the way. No half measures. You sure? I've watched our daughter disappear for 5 years. If you finally found your spine about this, then yes. I went down to the garage. The folder labeled Griffin Restaurant was thick. Photos of blocked exits, contractor receipts for unpermitted work, notes from conversations where Griffin bragged about paying workers under the table, 5 years of evidence I'd never fired because I'd been afraid of collateral damage to Elin. Marianne appeared in the doorway. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. Good, because I've been making my own list. She held up her phone. Every time Dolores said something cruel, every clinic visit where Elin claimed she fell. My phone buzzed. Text from Aaron. Couldn't sleep either. Building inspector named Carla Nguyen. She handles business compliance, smart, thorough. If you've got documentation, she'll want to see it. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Ranger Coffee, downtown. The next morning, I met Aaron and Carla at Ranger Coffee. Carla Nguyen was maybe 40, compact and precise. Lieutenant Brooks says you have concerns about some local businesses. I have documentation. I slid the folder across to her. She opened it, started reading. Her fingers drummed once against the table. This is comprehensive. 30 years as a construction foreman teaches you to keep records. How much of this have you reported previously? Some of it. Most got ignored or buried. Griffin knows people. Complaints disappear. Carla's jaw tightened. Not anymore. I've been reviewing their files independently. Your documentation fills in gaps I've had for months. What happens now? Now I coordinate with Fire Marshal, Code Enforcement, and Lieutenant Brooks. We conduct a comprehensive inspection. No warnings, no advance notice. When? Soon. Very soon. She closed the folder. Mr. Keene, what's your endgame here? I thought about Elin's wrist, Dolores' smile, 5 years of being told to stay quiet. All of it, I said. I want consequences they can't buy or charm their way out of. Aaron leaned forward. Harold, this is going to get ugly. They'll fight back. Let them. I'm not afraid of gossip anymore. That afternoon, I drove to Elin's school. Waited until classes ended. She emerged carrying art supplies, and when she saw my truck, her face did something complicated. Got a minute? We sat on a bench near the playground. I'm not here to lecture, I said. When did you stop painting? She blinked. What? You used to paint all the time. When did you stop? I got busy, teaching, the house, helping Griffin. 3 years ago, I interrupted. That's when you stopped showing me your work. Her hands twisted in her lap. Where is this going? How many times has he grabbed you hard enough to leave marks? The color drained from her face. Dad, don't. How many times has he told you you're too sensitive? Stop. I'm not stopping, because I've spent 5 years watching you disappear, Elin. And last night I watched your husband hurt you at his mother's table, and I watched her smile about it. Tears ran down her face, silent. Listen to yourself. If one of your students came to you and said those exact words, what would you tell her? She opened her mouth, closed it. No words came. I pulled out a business card. I'm just asking you to talk to someone who can help you see clearly. She took the card with shaking hands. He's going to be so angry if he finds out I talked to you. Why would he be angry that you talked to your father? She had no answer, and in her silence I heard everything she couldn't say. I love you, I said. Whatever happens, that doesn't change, but I'm done pretending everything is fine. That evening, Marianne called. Dolores just posted about a big family dinner Friday night, some celebration for Griffin's restaurant anniversary. I pulled up her profile, a glossy photo with a caption about overcoming obstacles and thriving despite small-minded critics. She's building an audience, I said, making sure everyone shows up to watch Griffin look successful. Marianne was quiet. This is really happening, isn't it? Yeah, it's really happening. Thursday, Griffin called me. First time he'd initiated contact in months. Harold, hey, about Friday night. Mom's doing this anniversary thing. It would mean a lot to Elin if you came. Bury the hatchet, you know? His voice was smooth, practiced. I'll talk to Marianne, I said. Great, 6:30. Dress nice. There'll be photographers. Sounds memorable. It will be, trust me. He hung up. I sat thinking about trust and how Griffin had spent 5 years teaching me never to give it to him. Aaron called that afternoon. You heard about tomorrow night's dinner party? Yeah, Griffin just invited me personally. That's going to make this worse. The public humiliation factor. Good. A pause. Harold, I need to make sure you understand what you're doing here. He destroyed my daughter for 5 years, in private. I'm just bringing it into the light. Carla called with the final plan. Friday evening, 6 p.m. Restaurant will be in full operation, bringing code enforcement, fire marshal, and police presence. Friday arrived with clear skies. Marianne and I wore our best clothes. We looked like we were going to a wedding and a funeral. Cars lined the street. Through the windows, I could see people mingling, laughing. We walked up to the door. Dolores opened it. Harold, Marianne, so glad you could make it. The house was packed. Griffin worked the room, introducing me as my father-in-law who helped me build this whole dream. I checked my phone. 5:53, 6 p.m. arrived with a knock at the door. The next 3 days crawled by. I worked, checked job sites, kept my crews safe, going through the motions while waiting for my phone to buzz with disaster. I kept expecting Elin to call, saying Griffin had figured everything out, that the plan was ruined, that she was done with me. On Wednesday, Marianne called. Dolores just posted about a big family dinner Friday night. At their house. She's inviting half the town. What? Some celebration for Griffin's restaurant anniversary. 5 years. She's making it sound huge. I checked Dolores' profile. A polished photo of the restaurant at sunset, the caption full of bragging about overcoming obstacles and thriving despite small-minded critics. Comments poured in. Congratulations, praise, excitement for Friday. She's building an audience, I said. She wants a crowd to witness Griffin looking successful. You think she knows? Marianne asked. No, she's just arrogant enough to think she's untouchable. Marianne exhaled. This is really happening, isn't it? Yeah, it is. The next morning, Griffin called me, his first time initiating contact in months. Harold, hey, about Friday, Mom's doing this big anniversary thing. It would mean a lot to Elin if you came. Bury the hatchet, you know, family. His tone was smooth, salesman polished. Bury the hatchet, I echoed. Yeah, look, I know we've had differences. I know you think I'm some walking disaster. But 5 years, Harold. 5 years of success. Maybe it's time to admit I know what I'm doing. The temptation to tell him exactly what was coming nearly overwhelmed me. I'll talk to Marianne, I said. Great, 6:30, cocktails first. Dress nice, a few business folks, and maybe a photographer. Sounds memorable. Oh, it will be, he said, and hung up. I sat in my truck watching the clouds drift, thinking about trust, and how 5 years of Griffin's decisions had taught me never to give him any. Erin called that afternoon. You heard about tomorrow night's dinner party? Yeah, Griffin just invited me personally, thinks we're burying the hatchet. That's going to make this worse, the public humiliation factor. Good. A pause. Harold, I need to make sure you understand what you're doing here. This isn't just shutting down a restaurant. You're destroying this man's reputation, his business, his relationships, in front of everyone he knows. He destroyed my daughter for 5 years, in private, where no one could see. I'm just bringing it into the light. And you're okay with being the villain in this story? Because that's how a lot of people are going to see you. I've been the villain in Griffin's version since day one. At least now I'll have earned it. That night, Marianne and I sat on our back porch, drinking coffee even though it was too late for caffeine, watching stars appear in the gaps between clouds. Are we wrong? She asked suddenly. Is there some other way we should be handling this? Probably. Almost definitely. But every other way requires Elin choosing to leave, and she's not there yet. What if this pushes her further toward him? What if she sees us as the enemy and doubles down? Then we lose her for a while, maybe a long while, but at least she'll be alive to hate us. Marianne's hand found mine. When did you get so cold? I'm not cold. I'm just done being warm to people who are burning our daughter. Friday arrived clear and cool. Perfect weather for a party. Marianne and I dressed like we were headed to both a celebration and a funeral. Last chance to back out, she said as we pulled into the Hales' driveway. Cars lined both sides of the street. Through the windows, we saw guests mingling with drinks, the kind of crowd Dolores curated like a lifestyle brand. She opened the door before we knocked, dressed in something sleek and expensive. Harold, Marianne, so glad you could make it. Inside, the house was packed. 50 people dressed like a magazine spread. Servers floated through with tiny hors d'oeuvres. A jazz trio played the kind of music meant to convince everyone their lives mattered more than they did. Griffin appeared, flushed and smiling too wide, a drink already in his hand. Harold, you came. Elin, your parents are here. Elin hugged us. She looked thinner than the last time, her smile trembling at the edges. Marianne whispered, You look beautiful. And for a second, Elin almost believed it. For the next hour, Griffin performed. He introduced me as my father-in-law, the construction foreman who helped me build my dream. Each introduction a soft knife to the ribs. See, he implied, I won. You're just here to watch. Dolores held court by the fireplace, reciting a rewritten history of the restaurant's early days, erasing every warning, every code violation, every corner Griffin had cut. I checked my phone, 5:53. 7 minutes. Marianne had positioned herself beside Elin, ready. At exactly 6, a knock sounded. The room didn't go silent all at once. Conversation stuttered, glasses paused midair. The jazz trio trailed off in confusion. Dolores frowned. She'd invited everyone she wanted. She opened the door. Deputy Aaron Brooks stood there in uniform, 2 officers beside him. Behind them, Carla Nguyen from the county held a tablet. A fire marshal stepped forward, followed by 3 code enforcement officials. The room froze. Good evening, Aaron said, voice calm and official. We're looking for Griffin Hale and Dolores Hale. We have questions regarding business compliance and safety violations. Griffin stepped forward with his usual confident smile. Aaron, Lieutenant Brooks, this is a private party. If you need something, we can schedule a time next week. This isn't a discussion, Carla Nguyen cut in. This is an official compliance inspection with police presence due to multiple outstanding violations. Griffin's color drained. Dolores stepped forward. This is ridiculous. We've passed every inspection. Your documentation is incomplete and in several cases fraudulent, Carla said. We have evidence of unpermitted construction, occupancy violations, safety failures, and financial irregularities spanning 3 years. A murmur spread through the crowd. Griffin's eyes locked on me. Confusion twisted into rage. You did this. I didn't move. Mr. Hale, Aaron said, we also need to address several recorded incidents. Physical altercations, threatening behavior. Harold, tell them this is you being vindictive. Sir, a code officer interrupted, we require immediate access to your restaurant. Reports include blocked emergency exits and unpermitted structural changes. You can't shut me down. I have rights. You have violations, Carla said. 23 total. 14 serious enough to close the business immediately. Dolores jumped in. This is harassment. We know the mayor. Mrs. Hale, Carla said, your event planning business is also under investigation. Unlicensed electrical work, unsafe storage, unreported workers, missing insurance. The mayor can't help you with compliance issues. That's my son's doing, Dolores said quickly. Griffin handled all of it. I had no involvement. Griffin snapped toward her. What? I trusted you, she said. If there are violations, they're your responsibility. You told me to cut corners. You said inspectors were obstacles. I said no such thing, she replied coolly. I run a legitimate business. You're throwing me under the bus, Griffin whispered, in front of everyone. I'm protecting myself, Dolores said, something you clearly didn't do. The argument exploded. Guests backed against the walls, filming. Elin stood frozen, white as paper, staring at Griffin like she'd never seen him before. Aaron stepped between them. We need both of you to come to the station. Officers are already securing your restaurant. No, Griffin said, hollow. Not tonight. But they could. And they were. Dolores kept talking, throwing Griffin under the bus in front of the entire room. Griffin turned to Elin, desperate. Babe, tell them this is Harold's revenge. Tell them we're fine. Mr. Hale, Aaron warned. Step outside, now. Elin, Griffin begged. But Elin didn't move. Tears streamed down her face. He lunged for her. I stepped between them without thinking. Move, he snarled. This is your fault. I stayed silent for 5 years, I said. No more. He shoved me hard. The officers grabbed him instantly. Touch him again, and you're going to jail, Aaron said. Griffin went limp, stunned. This can't be happening. It is, I said. Every corner you cut. Every warning you ignored. Every time you hurt my daughter. Carla stepped forward. Griffin Hale. Dolores Hale. Your businesses are ordered to cease operations immediately. You will appear at City Hall Monday. Monday? Dolores gasped. I have events. I have contracts. You should have thought about that before ignoring safety codes, Carla said. Guests started leaving, filming everything, whispering as Griffin's empire collapsed and Dolores abandoned him in real time. Griffin began to cry as officers escorted him toward the door. Mom, help me. You have to help me. I'm calling my lawyer, Dolores said without looking at him. Mom. But she was already gone, emotionally, calculating her own survival. Marianne held Elin, who shook silently. It's going to be okay, she whispered. No, it's not, Elin said, but she leaned into her mother's arms. I stepped beside them. It's not okay, but it's real now. No more pretending. Elin looked at me. Did you plan this? Tonight? In front of everyone? I planned consequences, I said. The timing was theirs. They invited the audience. I changed the show. He'll blame me, she whispered. He'll say I helped you. Good, Marianne said. Let him. You're coming home tonight? I can't. Yes, you can. I showed her the counselor's number. She's expecting your call, but tonight you're leaving and not going back. Elin stared at the number, then at us, then at the wreckage of her life. Okay, she whispered. Okay. We walked out past officers, past guests still filming, past Dolores standing alone in her suddenly quiet house. Griffin was in the police car, head in his hands. When he saw Elin leaving with us, something inside him broke. Elin, don't let him turn you against me. But she kept walking, Marianne holding her hand like someone guiding a survivor to shore. We drove home in silence. When we arrived, Elin said, I think I need to lie down. Your room is exactly as you left it, Marianne said. Inside the truck, she exhaled shakily. That was brutal. Yes. Are you okay with what happened? I thought of Griffin's face, the fallout, the years of harm. No, I said. But being not okay isn't stopping me anymore. Inside, the house felt different, like we'd brought back something we'd lost. Not just Elin, hope. Elin stayed in her old room for 2 days. Marianne brought her food, sat with her, didn't push. I kept my distance, knowing my presence was complicated for her right now, relief mixed with resentment, mixed with fear that I'd gone too far. Sunday afternoon, she finally emerged, wearing old clothes from her closet, hair in a ponytail, looking younger than she had in years. I called the counselor, she said. I have an appointment Tuesday. Good, Marianne said. Griffin's been texting. Elin held up her phone. 83 messages since Friday night, begging me to come home, telling me you poisoned me against him, threatening to show up here. If he shows up, we call Aaron, I said. I know. She sat at the kitchen table, the same seat she'd occupied every morning through high school. I keep waiting to feel guilty, like I should defend him or feel bad about what happened, but mostly I just feel tired. That's the mistreatment talking, Marianne said gently, the weariness of shouldering the blame for someone else's decisions. The counselor said something similar on the phone. Elin traced patterns on the table with her finger. She said I've been managing his emotions for so long that I forgot I'm allowed to have my own. You're allowed, I said. You've always been allowed. She looked at me then, really looked at me. Why now? Why Friday night? Why in front of everyone? You could have just reported them quietly. I could have, but quiet reports get buried. Quiet complaints get ignored. I needed it loud enough that they couldn't make it disappear. You humiliated them. They humiliated themselves. I just provided the stage. She was quiet for a long moment. Dolores called me yesterday, told me if I testified against Griffin, she'd make sure everyone knew I was unstable, that I'd made everything up for attention. What did you say? I hung up on her. Then I blocked her number. Then I threw up in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Marianne's hand covered Elin's. That's progress. All of it. Even the throwing up part. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like everything's broken. Everything was already broken, I said. You're just seeing the cracks now instead of spackle over them. Monday morning, Carla Nguyen called. Thought you'd want to know. Griffin's restaurant is officially closed pending full remediation. Could take months. Could be permanent if he can't pay the fines. And Dolores? Her event business is suspended. She's retained a lawyer and is doing everything possible to separate herself from Griffin's violations. Throwing him under the bus isn't just a figure of speech. She's provided documentation showing he made certain decisions without her knowledge. Will it work? Partially. She'll take a hit but might salvage something. Griffin's the one who's truly finished. Good. Harold? Carla's voice softened slightly. The local paper is running a story about the violations, the investigation, the family dinner collapse. Your name will be in it. Some people aren't going to understand what you did or why. I know. And you're okay with that? I thought about Elin upstairs, still in pajamas, taking the first real breath she'd taken in 5 years. I'm okay with that. The article came out Tuesday. Front page of the local section, complete with photos of the restaurant's closed doors and a quote from Dolores about unexpected compliance issues being resolved professionally. No mention of abuse, no mention of Elin. Just cold facts about violations and investigations and business licenses suspended. But the comments online told the real story. People who'd been at the party, people who'd filmed the confrontation, people who spread the gossip like wildfire. Did you see Griffin Hale completely melt down? Dolores literally blamed her own son to save herself. Harold Keene finally had enough of his son-in-law's nonsense. Some comments defended Griffin. Called me vindictive, jealous, a bitter old man who couldn't handle his daughter marrying up. Others praised me, said it was about time someone held the Hales accountable. I read them all once, then closed my laptop and didn't look again. Wednesday, Elin went to her first counseling session. Came home exhausted, but clear-eyed. She wants to see me 3 times a week for now, Elin said, and she gave me homework. I have to write down every time I feel guilty about leaving and then challenge whether that guilt is mine or something I learned from Griffin. How's that going? Marianne asked. The first page is full. All of it learned, Elin's voice cracked. I didn't even realize how much of what I thought was me was actually just him. Thursday, Griffin's lawyer contacted Elin through her school email, asked if she'd be willing to provide a statement supporting Griffin's character for the investigation. She forwarded it to me without responding. He's desperate, I said, grasping. Should I respond? Only if you want to, only if you're ready. Friday, exactly 1 week after the dinner party, Elin came downstairs in the morning and said, I want to file for separation, not divorce yet, just legal separation, but I want it on record that I left. Marianne hugged her. I nodded, feeling something tight in my chest finally loosen. I'll help you find a lawyer, I said. Already found one. She specializes in domestic situations. First consultation is Monday. Good. Dad. Elin's voice was small. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself. I wanted to say something profound, something father-daughter movie moment worthy. Instead, I just pulled her into a hug and held on while she cried. The separation papers were filed the following Thursday. Griffin's response came within hours, a torrent of texts, calls, voicemails. Marianne's phone, my phone, even the school's main line, all of them desperate, angry, pleading. He says he'll fight it, Elin told us that evening. Says I'm not thinking clearly, that you've manipulated me, that we can work it out if I just come home. Do you want to go home? I asked. No. God, no. But he's making me doubt myself, making me wonder if I'm overreacting. You're not, Marianne said firmly. We have photos of bruises, documentation of clinic visits, testimony from neighbors who heard arguments. You're not overreacting. You're finally reacting appropriately. Aaron called that weekend. Thought you should know. Griffin showed up at the station yesterday asking about restraining orders. Against you. Against me? Said you're harassing him, stalking him, interfering with his marriage. I told him that reporting actual violations isn't harassment. He didn't take it well. How not well? Yelling, accusations. Had to be escorted out. It's all on record now. Good. More paperwork. More proof. More nails in the final trap Griffin had set for himself. Dolores reached out next. Not to Elin directly, but through a mutual friend. Asked if Elin would meet her for coffee. Just to talk. Mother-in-law to daughter-in-law. Absolutely not, I said when Elin told us. I'm not planning to go, but she's being persistent. She's trying to find ammunition, Marianne said. Trying to figure out what you know, what you've told lawyers, what you might testify to. Don't give her anything. I won't. But the pressure kept mounting. Griffin's lawyer filed motions. Dolores spread carefully worded rumors about Elin's emotional instability. Friends and acquaintances started choosing sides, some reaching out to offer support, others going noticeably silent. It's like high school, Elin said one night. Except worse because everyone's adults pretending to be neutral while absolutely taking sides. People are always going to believe what makes them comfortable, I said. Some folks can't accept that the charming restaurant owner is an abuser. Easier to believe you're confused or I'm controlling. Does it bother you, what people think? Not as much as watching you hurt bothered me. 3 weeks after the Friday night collapse, Carla called with an update. Griffin's been trying to reopen the restaurant, claiming he's fixed the violations, hired proper contractors, brought everything up to code. Has he? Partially, but he's missing documentation, and several violations require long-term monitoring before we can approve reopening. He's looking at minimum 6 months closure, probably longer. And Dolores? Her business might survive. She's cooperating fully, providing every document we ask for, throwing Griffin under the bus at every opportunity. Cold, but effective. She always was good at self-preservation. Griffin's not handling it well. He's filed complaints against you, against me, against the fire marshal. All dismissed, but it shows his mental state. Desperate. Cornered, which makes him potentially dangerous. Be careful, Harold. That warning proved prescient sooner than expected. It was a Tuesday evening, early May, the kind of soft spring night that used to mean backyard grilling and quiet. Marianne and I were on the porch, Elin inside talking to her lawyer on the phone. Griffin's truck pulled up to the curb. Stay here, I told Marianne, already standing. I'm calling Aaron. Griffin got out. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, eyes with that particular shine that meant too much stress and maybe too much alcohol. I need to talk to my wife, he called across the lawn. She doesn't want to talk to you, I replied, staying on the porch, keeping distance between us. This is your fault, all of it. The restaurant, my mother turning on me, Elin leaving. You poisoned her against me. I just showed her what was already there. You destroyed my life, his voice cracked. 5 years building something and you tore it down in one night because you couldn't stand that I was better than you. Better than me? The laugh came out harsh. You hurt my daughter. You cut every corner I warned you about. You surrounded yourself with yes men and convinced yourself their silence meant success. I didn't destroy your life, Griffin. You did. I just stopped catching you when you fell. She was fine until you interfered. We were fine. She was hiding bruises, making excuses for your temper, apologizing for breathing too loud. That's not fine. Elin appeared in the doorway behind me. Griffin, you need to leave. Babe, please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. That's when Aaron's patrol car turned onto the street, lights on, but no siren. Marianne's call had been fast. Griffin saw it, and something in his face crumbled. You called the cops on me? Again? You're on private property, uninvited, Aaron said, stepping out. And there's a restraining order being processed. This isn't helping your case. Case? What case? I'm trying to save my marriage. Your marriage ended when you grabbed your wife hard enough to leave marks, Aaron said flatly. Now you need to leave before I arrest you for trespassing. Griffin looked at Elin, At me, at Aaron, and the fight went out of him all at once. He slumped against his truck. I loved you, he said to Elin. I gave you everything. You gave me fear, Elin said quietly. You gave me shame. You gave me years of thinking I was the problem. That's not love. Your father brainwashed you. My father saved me. Griffin stared at her for a long moment, then got in his truck and drove away. Aaron watched him go. I'll follow at a distance, make sure he goes home, but Harold, that man's at the end of his rope. Keep your guard up. I will. After Aaron left, Elin sank onto the porch steps. I can't believe I was married to him. I can't believe I defended him. You loved who you thought he was, Marianne said. That's not a crime. It feels like stupidity. It's hope, I said. You hoped he'd be better. That's not stupid. That's human. We sat there in the dark, listening to crickets and distant traffic, and for the first time in weeks, something like peace settled over the porch. The restraining order was approved within 48 hours. Griffin contested it, of course, but Elin's lawyer had documentation, photos, clinic records, witness statements. The judge granted a 6-month order with the option to extend. Griffin's response was predictable. Social media posts about false accusations and family betrayal, carefully worded to avoid direct defamation but clear enough in their target. Some people believed him, most just watched the train wreck with morbid fascination. He's making himself look worse, Elin said, scrolling through her phone one evening. Every post, every comment. He can't stop talking. That's fear, I said. He's losing control of the narrative, and he doesn't know how to function without control. Good. The word came out sharp, harder than Elin usually spoke. Marianne and I exchanged glances. Good? Marianne asked carefully. Yes. Good. I spent 5 years managing his emotions, walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. If he's scared now, if he's losing control, good. Let him feel what I felt. That's growth, Marianne said. Anger is progress. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels mean. Sometimes mean is appropriate, I said. Sometimes mean is just boundaries with teeth. Griffin's lawyer tried several more approaches. Mediation offers, settlement proposals, requests for Elin to attend counseling with Griffin, all declined. Each refusal seemed to push Griffin further into desperation. Dolores, meanwhile, had pivoted completely. Her social media now featured posts about difficult family situations and supporting women's independence, carefully crafted to distance herself from Griffin while maintaining plausible deniability. She's rewriting history in real time, Elin said, acting like she didn't spend 5 years encouraging Griffin to control me. Document it, I said. Everything she posts, screenshot it. She's building a narrative where she's the reasonable one. Don't let her get away with it. Are you going to do anything about her, like you did with Griffin? I thought about it. Dolores was slippery, better at covering tracks than Griffin had been, but she was also vulnerable now, her business weakened, her reputation damaged by association. Not unless she comes after you, I said finally. Griffin was actively hurting you. Dolores was enabling it, which is terrible, but different. If she stays away, I'll let her fade into obscurity. And if she doesn't stay away, then we'll revisit the situation. May turned into June. Elin's separation advanced toward divorce proceedings. She'd moved from our house into a small apartment near her school. I need to prove I can stand on my own, she'd said, and I'd understood even if I missed having her in the house. Griffin's restaurant remained closed. He'd started a crowdfunding campaign to save the business from regulatory persecution. It raised about $800 before being flagged for misleading claims. He's bleeding money, Aaron told me over coffee. Legal fees, fines, lost revenue. Word is he might have to declare personal insolvency. Good, I said, echoing Elin's word from weeks ago. You're not worried about him snapping, doing something desperate? I'm always worried, but I can't live my life around his potential actions. Neither can Elin. Fair enough. Just keep the restraining order handy and call me if he shows up again. The second confrontation came in July, 3 months after the Friday night collapse. Not at my house this time. At Elin's school, where Griffin apparently thought he could corner her during summer office hours. The principal called me. Your daughter is fine, but there was an incident. Police were involved. I drove there doing 20 over the limit. Found Elin in the principal's office, shaking but composed. Aaron was taking statements in the hallway. Griffin was in handcuffs in the back of a patrol car. What happened? He was waiting in the parking lot, Elin said. When I came out, he tried to talk to me. I told him to leave. He grabbed my arm. I screamed. Teachers came out. Someone called the police. He grabbed you. Violated the restraining order in front of multiple witnesses, Aaron said from the doorway. He's going to jail tonight. Bail hearing tomorrow, but he's looking at charges. I sat beside Elin, taking her hand. It was trembling. I was so scared, she whispered. Not that he'd hurt me. I mean, I was scared of that too, but scared that I'd cave, that I'd feel sorry for him and take it all back. Did you? No. I screamed. I fought. I didn't protect him. Not this time. Pride and heartbreak mixed in my chest. Pride that she'd fought back. Heartbreak that she'd ever needed to learn how. Griffin was held overnight. Bail set at $10,000. Dolores didn't pay it. Neither did any of his friends. He spent 3 days in county jail before a sympathetic acquaintance posted bond. But the damage was done. The restraining order violation went on record. His lawyer dropped him. The few supporters he'd had started distancing themselves. He's completely isolated now, Elin said when we heard the news. No business, no friends backing him. His own mother won't help him. Part of me feels bad. Only part? Okay, tiny part. The rest of me remembers every time he squeezed my wrist under the table. Every time Dolores smiled about it. Every time I apologized for making him angry. Hold on to that, I said. Compassion is admirable, but not when it makes you vulnerable to people who hurt you. August brought the finalization of the business investigations. Griffin's restaurant license was permanently revoked due to repeated violations and failure to remediate. The building owner terminated his lease. The equipment was sold to cover debts. Dolores's business received a suspended sentence, meaning she could operate but under strict monitoring and subject to random inspections. She'd survived, barely, by throwing Griffin to the wolves so thoroughly that even the investigators felt sorry for him. She'll rebuild, Marianne said. People like Dolores always do. They're cockroaches in designer shoes. As long as she stays away from Elin, I don't care what she rebuilds. September arrived with cooling temperatures and the feeling of things settling into new patterns. Elin had started the school year teaching full-time again, her apartment decorated with artwork she'd finally started creating again. I painted something, she told us one Sunday at dinner. First real painting in 4 years. It's terrible, but I finished it. Can we see it? Marianne asked. It's just abstract shapes and angry colors, but yes. She showed us a photo on her phone. She was right. It was abstract, all harsh reds and jagged lines. But it was also undeniably hers and undeniably alive. It's perfect, I said. It's honest, she corrected. Maybe that's the same thing. The divorce papers were filed in early October. Griffin didn't contest them. He'd been served them in the shabby apartment he'd moved to after losing the house, delivered them by a process server who reported he'd looked broken and possibly intoxicated. I should feel something, Elin said when her lawyer confirmed Griffin had signed. Relief, satisfaction, something. But I just feel empty. That's normal, Marianne said. You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that the crisis is over, your body doesn't know what to do. When does it feel better? Eventually. But there's no timeline on healing. Griffin made one last attempt to reach out in November. A letter slipped under Elin's apartment door, handwritten, pages of apologies and explanations and promises to change. She brought it to dinner at our house that weekend. I don't know if I should read it. Do you want to? I asked. Part of me does. Part of me wants to believe he means it. And the other part? Remembers that he meant it before, too. Meant it every time he promised to do better. Meant it, and then grabbed me again anyway. She burned the letter in our fireplace, unread, watched it curl and blacken and turn to ash. There, she said, done. The restraining order was approved within 48 hours. Griffin contested it, but Ellen's lawyer had documentation, photos, clinic records, witness statements. The judge granted a 6-month order with the option to extend. Griffin's response was predictable. Social media posts about false accusations and family betrayal, carefully worded to avoid direct defamation but clear enough in their target. He's making himself look worse, Elin said, scrolling through her phone one evening. Every post, every comment. He can't stop talking. That's fear, I said. He's losing control of the narrative. Good. The word came out sharp, harder than Elin usually spoke. Good? Marianne asked carefully. Yes, good. I spent 5 years managing his emotions, walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. If he's scared now, if he's losing control, good. Let him feel what I felt. That's growth, Marianne said. Anger is progress. Griffin's lawyer tried several more approaches. Mediation offers, settlement proposals, requests for Elin to attend counseling with Griffin. All declined. Each refusal seemed to push Griffin further into desperation. Dolores, meanwhile, had pivoted completely. Her social media now featured posts about difficult family situations and supporting women's independence. "She's rewriting history in real time," Elin said, acting like she didn't spend 5 years encouraging Griffin to control me. "Document it," I said. "Screenshot everything. She's building a narrative where she's the reasonable one." May turned into June. Elin's separation advanced toward divorce proceedings. She'd moved into a small apartment near her school. "I need to prove I can stand on my own." Griffin's restaurant remained closed. He'd started a crowdfunding campaign to save the business from regulatory persecution. It raised about $800 before being flagged for misleading claims. "He's bleeding money," Aaron told me over coffee. "Legal fees, fines, lost revenue. Word is he might have to declare personal insolvency." The second confrontation came in July, 3 months after the Friday night collapse. Not at my house, at Elin's school, where Griffin apparently thought he could corner her during summer office hours. The principal called me. "Your daughter is fine, but there was an incident. Police were involved." I drove there doing 20 over the limit. Found Elin in the principal's office, shaking but composed. Aaron was taking statements. Griffin was in handcuffs in a patrol car. "What happened?" "He was waiting in the parking lot," Elin said. "When I came out, he tried to talk to me. I told him to leave. He grabbed my arm. I screamed. Teachers came out." "He grabbed you?" "Violated the restraining order in front of multiple witnesses," Aaron said. "He's going to jail tonight. Bail hearing tomorrow, but he's looking at charges." I sat beside Elin, taking her hand. It was trembling. "I was so scared," she whispered. "Not that he'd hurt me. Scared that I'd cave, that I'd feel sorry for him and take it all back." "Did you?" "No. I screamed. I fought. I didn't protect him. Not this time." Griffin was held overnight. Bail set at $10,000. Dolores didn't pay it. He spent 3 days in county jail before a sympathetic acquaintance posted bond. The restraining order violation went on record. His lawyer dropped him. The few supporters he'd had started distancing themselves. "He's completely isolated now," Elin said. "No business, no friends. His own mother won't help him. Part of me feels bad." "Only part?" "Tiny part. The rest of me remembers every time he squeezed my wrist under the table." August brought the finalization of the business investigations. Griffin's restaurant license was permanently revoked. The building owner terminated his lease. The equipment was sold to cover debts. Dolores's business received a suspended sentence. She could operate but under strict monitoring. She'd survived by throwing Griffin to the wolves so thoroughly that even the investigators felt sorry for him. September arrived with cooling temperatures and new patterns. Elin had started the school year teaching full-time, her apartment decorated with artwork she'd finally started creating again. "I painted something," she told us one Sunday. "First real painting in 4 years. It's terrible, but I finished it." "Can we see it?" Marianne asked. She showed us a photo. Abstract shapes, angry colors, harsh reds and jagged lines. Undeniably hers, undeniably alive. "It's perfect," I said. "It's honest," she corrected. "Maybe that's the same thing." The divorce papers were filed in early October. Griffin didn't contest them, delivered by a process server who reported he'd looked broken and possibly intoxicated. "I should feel something," Elin said when her lawyer confirmed Griffin had signed. "Relief, satisfaction, something. But I just feel empty." "That's normal," Marianne said. "You've been running on adrenaline for months. Now that the crisis is over, your body doesn't know what to do." Griffin made one last attempt in November. A letter slipped under Elin's apartment door, handwritten, pages of apologies and promises to change. She brought it to dinner at our house. "I don't know if I should read it." "Do you want to?" I asked. "Part of me does. Part of me wants to believe he means it." "And the other part?" "Remembers that he meant it before, too. Meant it every time he promised to do better. Meant it and then grabbed me again anyway." She burned the letter in our fireplace, unread. Watched it curl and blacken and turn to ash. "There," she said. "Done." December brought snow and the strangest holiday season I'd experienced in years. Strange because it was peaceful. Elin was present, really present, laughing at old family jokes without constantly checking her phone. "It's weird not dreading Christmas," she said while hanging ornaments. "I forgot what it felt like to enjoy it." "Griffin always made the holidays difficult?" Marianne asked. "Everything was about his timeline, his family, his stress. I could never just exist. I had to perform." "You don't have to perform here," I said. We got word through Aaron that Griffin had moved out of state, Tennessee, maybe Kentucky, somewhere he could start over where nobody knew his history. Dolores had apparently helped with moving costs, probably to ensure he actually left. Good riddance, Elin said. Let him be someone else's problem. Dolores sent a Christmas card to Elin, expensive, embossed, with a generic message about wishing you well. No apology, no acknowledgement of her role. Elin threw it away, unopened. January brought the finalization of the divorce. Elin had to appear in court for about 15 minutes. Griffin appeared by video call from Tennessee, looking hollow and refusing to meet anyone's eyes. The judge granted the divorce. 5 years of marriage dissolved in less time than it took to order lunch. I thought I'd feel something bigger, Elin said afterward. Some dramatic sense of freedom. How do you feel? Tired. Still tired. That's the trauma, her counselor had said. Healing isn't a light switch. February marked 1 year since I'd sat in that garage, finally deciding to act. The restaurant was gone. Griffin was gone. Dolores' business was a shadow of itself. Elin was building a new life from wreckage. Do you regret it? Marianne asked one night. The way you did it. The public humiliation? No. Quiet reports would have been ignored. Elin would still be making excuses for bruises. Some people still think you were cruel. Let them think it. I didn't do it for them. March brought unexpected news. Dolores was selling her business, retiring, according to social media, focusing on personal wellness. Translation, she can't recover her reputation, Elin said. Probably. Good. April brought the first anniversary of the Friday night collapse. The date passed without ceremony, but Elin called that evening. Just wanted to say thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. I'd do it again, I said. Exactly the same way. May brought warmer weather and Elin's announcement that she'd been accepted into a graduate program for art education. 2 years, part-time while I teach. That's wonderful, Marianne said. It feels like starting over, except this time I know what red flags look like. June brought a call from Aaron. Griffin's back in town. Showed up at his old restaurant building. Owner called the police. Is he okay? Define okay. He's not arrested, but he's not well either. Looked rough. Been drinking, probably. Made some comments about how you ruined his life. Should I be worried? I'm keeping an eye on it. But yes, maintain awareness. I told Elin. She went pale. He's back? Aaron's watching it. But we should be careful. But Griffin didn't escalate. He was seen around town occasionally, always alone, always looking diminished. The few times I saw him from a distance, I barely recognized him. The confident swagger gone, replaced by something hunched and broken. July brought Elin's news that she'd started seeing someone, a teacher at her school. Nothing serious yet, just coffee. But it feels good to be interested in someone who doesn't make me afraid. Does he know about Griffin? I told him basics. He was understanding, just listened. That's a good sign. August brought the second anniversary. Elin had mostly stopped talking about Griffin, stopped letting him occupy space in her head. I realized something, she told us. Griffin doesn't get to be the defining trauma of my life. He was awful, and he hurt me, but he doesn't get to be the main character of my story. I'm the main character. Damn right, Marianne said. September brought the start of Elin's graduate program and a new rhythm. Teaching, studying, painting, building friendships that weren't filtered through Griffin's control. I didn't realize how isolated I was, she said. Now I can just say yes when people ask me to do things. It's so simple. October brought news that Dolores had moved. Florida, following the path of people escaping their past by moving somewhere sunny and anonymous. Think she learned anything? Elin asked. Probably not, I said. People like Dolores don't learn. They adapt. November brought Thanksgiving with Elin and her boyfriend James. It was strange having someone new at the table. Strange, but good. Your family seems nice, he told Elin later. They saved my life, she replied simply. 3 years after the Friday night collapse, Aaron called with news that changed everything. Griffin's been arrested in Tennessee, charged with serious domestic harm against his new girlfriend. She's filing a complaint. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. He's doing it again. Looks like it. Restraining order, assault charges, the whole pattern. Prosecutors might want Elin's testimony about his history. I told Elin that evening, watched the color drain from her face. He's hurting someone else, she whispered. Yes. Will you testify if they ask? Yes. God, yes. If it helps her, if it shows the pattern, yes. The trial happened 6 months later. Elin flew to Tennessee, gave testimony about her experiences, stayed composed under cross-examination. The girlfriend, a woman named Laura, who bore an uncanny resemblance to how Elin had looked years ago, testified about escalating mistreatment, controlling behavior, and fear. The courtroom was cold, institutional. Griffin sat at the defense table looking hollow, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. When Elin took the stand, she spoke clearly, without hesitation. "He grabbed my wrist at dinner," she said, "hard enough to leave marks," and his mother smiled about it. That's when my father finally acted. Griffin's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Isn't it true you're biased against my client? That your father orchestrated the destruction of his business?" "My father documented violations that were real," Elin replied. "Griffin chose to ignore building codes. He chose to grab me. He chose to control and intimidate. My father just stopped letting him get away with it." "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, standing, "we have additional evidence. Phone records showing Mr. Hale's escalating threats to Miss Laura Sinclair, text messages displaying the same controlling patterns Ms. Keene-Porter described, medical records documenting injuries." Laura testified next, her voice shaking but determined. "He told me I was too sensitive, that I overreacted, that if I just tried harder, he wouldn't get so angry. The same things he told her." The prosecutor presented the pattern step by step. Two women, years apart, identical experiences. Control masked as care, aggression justified as intensity, isolation framed as affection. Dolores was subpoenaed. She appeared via video, dressed in black, her expression carefully neutral. "Did you witness him being aggressive toward his wife?" the prosecutor asked. A long pause. The whole courtroom waited. "I saw him grab her once," Dolores admitted finally, "at a family dinner. I should have said something. I didn't." "Why not?" "Because he's my son, and I wanted to believe it wasn't as bad as it looked." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. "On the charge of serious domestic harm, we find the defendant guilty." Griffin's face crumbled. Laura sobbed with relief. Elin squeezed my hand so hard her knuckles went white. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Griffin was remanded into custody immediately. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at the courtroom one last time. His eyes found Dolores on the video screen, found Elin in the gallery, found me sitting beside her. "This is your fault," he said, his voice breaking. "All of you. You destroyed me." "No," Elin said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. We just stopped pretending you hadn't." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge banged her gavel. Guards pulled Griffin toward the door. His last words before disappearing, "I loved you. I gave you everything." "You gave me fear," Elin called after him. "That's not love." The door closed. He was gone. Outside the courthouse, Laura approached us. She was younger than Elin, maybe 26, with the same haunted look Elin had worn years ago. "Thank you," she said, "for testifying, for showing the pattern." "It's never just one bad night," Elin said. "I know that now." Laura's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry you had to relive it." "I'm not," Elin said firmly. "If it helped you, if it put him away, then it was worth it." Laura nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked away to where her sister was waiting. Elin turned to me. "Let's go home." We drove to the airport in silence. At the gate, while waiting to board, Elin finally spoke. "He'll be in prison for 18 months, then probation." "Will it change him?" "I don't know. I don't care. That's his journey, not mine." "Fair enough." "Dad," she said, looking at me directly, "you asked me once if I regretted leaving him, if I thought you'd overreacted." "I remember." "I need you to know, you didn't overreact. You reacted exactly right, and I'm only alive and whole because you refused to stay quiet." The boarding announcement interrupted us. We got in line, showed our tickets, found our seats. As the plane lifted off, Elin fell asleep against the window. I watched her sleep and thought about the Friday night dinner 3 years ago that had started everything. Thought about Griffin's hand on Elin's wrist, Dolores' smile, the phone call that changed everything, the restaurant collapsing under the weight of its own violations, and now this, a courtroom in Tennessee, a guilty verdict, another woman saved from the same fate. When we landed, Marianne was waiting at arrivals. She hugged Elin tight. "How'd it go?" "Guilty on all counts," Elin said. "He's going to prison." "Good," Marianne said fiercely. "Good." We drove home through familiar streets, past the closed restaurant that had been Griffin's dream and his downfall. That night at dinner, Elin raised her glass. "To consequences?" "To consequences," Marianne and I echoed. "And to fathers who don't look away," Elin added. We drank to that. A week later, sentencing day arrived. The prosecutor called with the outcome: 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, and permanent restraining orders. The judge called it a pattern of predatory control. That night, I stood on my back porch, looking at the same stars I'd looked at 3 years earlier. Everything was different now. Griffin was in prison. Dolores was gone. Elin was free. Some would call me cruel, vindictive, say I'd ruined a man out of spite. But they never saw Elin flinch, never watched her shrink herself for 5 years, never heard her apologize for simply existing. They didn't get a say. I thought about the call I'd made that Friday night. Aaron's steady voice the moment I stood from the dinner table and decided silence was no longer an option. I thought about Griffin's hand tightening around Elin's wrist, about Dolores's approving smile, about how keeping the peace had really meant allowing mistreatment. Inside, Marianne and Elin were laughing, light, unguarded, free. Behind us, the knocking in our lives had stopped. There was nothing left to demand entry. Some houses don't fall because their walls are weak. They fall because someone finally walks away and lets them rot.